working on together and collaborating to deliver jointly. And we're really happy to be doing that. Obviously, we've got a lot of touch points between our two memberships, and ultimately, when we work together and communicate, the end product is better for the homeowner and the public. So we're here to continue that conversation between the building and building official communities. We have 90 minutes for the session. We are scheduled to end at 11:30 this morning. We have 4 speakers to share their experiences and their knowledge and expertise on technology and permitting systems. But before we get going, we'll proceed to the next slide, and we want to just do our land acknowledgement. CHBA BC and BOABC acknowledge that we live and work. Sorry, my screen just crashed. Acknowledge that we live and work on the unceded traditional and ancestral homelands of hundreds of Indigenous peoples and nations across British Columbia, each with their own unique traditions. We are honored to be on their land and thank them for allowing us to meet and learn together on their territories. Slide. There you go. So I mentioned we got 4 speakers, and they come from BC and Alberta and Ontario. So we're providing a bit of a kind of multi-provincial perspective on our topic today. Our first speaker will be Lisa Picotte-Li, who is the Director of Operations at Technical Safety BC and oversees assessments of electrical, gas equipment, boilers and pressure vessels, elevating devices, passenger ropeways, and amusement rides. She is responsible for risk-based inspections, including the use of machine learning, and leading the implementation of digital assessments. Her recent articles include Digital Transformation is About People, Regulating the Future, and an Employee and Machine at a Workplace. Trained as a lawyer in construction and transportation technology, Lisa is passionate about regulatory oversight that is efficient, inclusive, and sustainable. Our second presenter also from BC, from the city of White Rock, is Wayne Berg. Wayne's a registered building official with both BOABC and BC, but also the Alliance of Canadian Building Officials Association nationally. He's a journeyman carpenter with Red Seal endorsement. And I apologize, I'm having some technical issues here. And after 20 years of construction and development, Wayne entered local government realm to further expand his knowledge of building and urban planning. His career started with the city of Richmond, where he was an inspector, and he left leading the team of building inspectors. He's now with the city of White Rock since 2020 and is currently the manager of building and bylaw enforcement. Our third speaker of the day will be Chad Rich. Chad Rich is the General Supervisor of Compliance, Learning and Innovation with the Safety Code section in the city of Edmonton. In his 18 years with the city, Chad has worked through multiple roles, including permit administration, inspections, operations, and leadership. Chad contributes to various provincial committees and maintains multiple safety code certification, as well as Red Seal Journeyman Trade certification. And with a passion for positive change in the built environment, Chad is continually looking to advance technology strategies and collaborate with change mindsets. And lastly, we've got Gerald Moore, who is the president of RSM Building Consultants from Ontario. He's been in that position for 15 years, supporting small and large municipalities, meeting their mandated duty to enforce the Ontario Building Code. Gerald has more than 25 years in the building inspection field and has fulfilled roles of plans examiner, inspector, and chief building official for large and small municipalities in Ontario. He's a graduate of the Construction Engineering Technology program at Conestoga College, as well as a certified building official from our friends at the Ontario Building Officials Association, and he's also registered with the Alliance of Canadian Building Officials. He is a certified engineering technologist from the Ontario Association of Certified Engineering and Technicians and Technologists. It's a mouthful. So those are our 4 presenters today. We're really thankful for all of them attending. Each of them will present for about 10 minutes. And then we'll provide time for a couple minutes for 2-3 questions after each presentation. And then we'll circle around at the end. If there's more time for questions, feel free to raise your hand, put your question in the chat. If it's looking like we might run out of time for the discussion, feel free. In fact, I would encourage you to put your question in the chat, and then we will follow up with the presenters and get written responses for you, and provide the information out as well. And lastly, the session is being recorded, so the webinar link will be available for you or for others who aren't able to attend today. First presentation, which is going to be from Lisa at Technical Safety BC. Lisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Tyler. Do you think I could get my deck? Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. It's so nice to see the turnout here. I saw lots of people from all across the province. I am joining you from the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. Although at Technical Safety BC, we have folks from across the province. Many of you would be familiar with them. And certainly for my area that I oversee in operations, our safety officers are just distributed throughout. So I was thrilled when I was asked to speak to this because we've done a lot of work in the last several years in terms of digitalizing a number of our processes. What I will focus on today is a few things. I'm going to talk a little bit from our assessments perspective in terms of what that looks like at Technical Safety BC, because it's quite the range. The other part that I'll go into is a little bit of how we use something called structured resource allocation. It's a program, a risk-based oversight program in terms of what we decide to inspect and what we don't go see in person. And part of that is the use of machine learning in terms of deploying our resources. And then the last part is that I'll show some trends and data that we have, both from the use of machine learning and then also a little bit on what we're seeing in the early days still related to remote assessments, because there is a lot there. So with that, I'll get started with the first piece, which is the assessment bit. So as Tyler mentioned in the introduction, is that I oversee the inspections of our basically all of our technologies except for rail, which is a little bit different. So that includes electrical, gas, boiler pressure vessels, refrigeration, elevating devices, and amusement rides. It also includes things like large energy projects where we have some different approaches. If we can go to the next slide there, that would be great. So when we say assessments, we're actually looking at the entire range of these types of things that we do to look at equipment. In our inspections, there's on one side, it's a very low touch, the lightest touch on the left side, which is when we more or less accept things on a declaration. The system essentially assesses the permit and then predicts the level of hazard, which I'll talk a little bit more about on the next slide. If the permit is assessed as a low hazard, we might choose to review and accept a declaration of compliance from the person who submitted that, including review of photos and documentation. And that is a little bit of a higher touch. In some cases, our folks might conduct a remote inspection, and sometimes this will include a real-time video like we're doing today in terms of being able to see the other person and whether it's a Zoom call or a different platform of what's going on. And then as we move down that spectrum, we also have physical inspections. And I think most people are familiar with that. And we do those for the highest hazard permits, generally speaking. These inspections require quite a significant investment of travel time and effort by our safety officers. And we tend to focus that more on poor performers, complex projects, and in some cases related to the performance of our machine learning algorithm. So that's a little bit of our traditional assessment approaches. And then on the far end, we have audits, which differ a little bit from inspections in that they focus on a client's systems and processes rather than just the completed work, less on the equipment itself, but overall the entire approach to safety. So similar to remote inspections, though, we're still exploring. It's still early days in terms of best practices and what's working and what's not working. And so this is really the range of assessments that we do. And that's the umbrella term that then includes things like inspections and what our safety officers do. And so with digitalization, one of the things that really has been a core focus is that, as you can imagine, with the diversity of the equipment and industries that we oversee, there's quite a bit of variation from who is interfacing with us, everything from homeowners to contractors to very complex contractors like the larger elevating folks, and also places like LNG. And so the type of oversight we provide has to apply and work equitably across all of these different segments. And so the nice thing with digital services and then delivery of these types of services, being able to use and leverage technology has allowed us to better adapt things to the type of participant and the type of segment that we're looking after. It's also been useful in terms of taking a more systems approach, and then our focus, and certainly throughout the pandemic and coming out of it now, is how do we actually scale safety in a way that doesn't add administrative bureaucracy to the work, but rather moves people through quickly and efficiently. So that's a little bit of an overview of that assessment, and then where inspections fall in assessments for us when we go out to see equipment. So if we go to the next slide there, I'll talk a little bit about our risk-based oversight program. Like I said in the beginning there, we call it the Structured Resource Allocation Program, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a structured way to allocate our limited resources. So the reality is there is a ton of equipment out there, a ton of work out there, and it's just not possible for us to see every single piece of equipment and every single person. The cost of a permit in that scenario would be untenable. And so we need to think about how we can see what we need to see and not be a pinch point for people, so that things can move through and still be effective and efficient. And so when we look at our SRA program overall, there are just so many factors that feed into it. So everything from changes in the market, the supply and labor shortages we've all experienced in the last few years, and the impacts of COVID, to things like technical risks and code requirements. We also get reports of incidents, our own compliance and enforcement activities, as well as our partnerships with other organizations. And then, of course, new tools, complaints that come in, expectations of service levels. So just a whole host of things that factor into what we should look at and what we shouldn't look at, and how do we, again, maintain that service level so that it does not become a pinch point. And so when we are looking at our SRA program and how do we allocate those resources, there are really 5 core areas that we break down so that what we are going to see is most effective, and use technology to leverage that and to make it as simple as possible. So the first category we use are called policy rules. Lots of people will be familiar with this. So if you're conducting a gas installation, for example, at a school or a facility where there are vulnerable populations, like where there are, I'm trying to think, like hospitals or in a care facility, we're going to be looking at those because there's a very low risk tolerance in terms of something going sideways. Nobody will want children or the elderly to be potentially harmed because there's something that hasn't been put together quite right there. Another area that we look at, and it's based on also validation of our machine learning model, is what's called sample plans. And so one of the things with using technology and using machine learning and an algorithm is the question of if you get biased results. So if biased results go in, you get biased recommendations that come out, and we certainly wouldn't want that to skew what we're looking at. And so we regularly test whether things are working or not. And with that, we use sample plans. So we pull a subset, there's a control group, and then the group that has a variable, and compare the data to make sure that what we're doing is actually reflective and not just reflecting a potential bias that we or the model might have. The third area, and I'm saying third because that's how I've included on the slide, but they're certainly not in order. I think it's maybe better to think of it as a pie chart in which there's different aspects of that pie, is the use of machine learning. So we've been doing this for a number of years now, and it's And it's the use of an algorithm, and it's actually multiple algorithms, and all of the permit data that comes in goes into this. And there's a scoring matrix based on a number of factors: compliance history, the performance, the nature of the contractor, high hazards or not, non-compliances, a number of things that go in. And then there's a score that comes out of the system. And based on that score, it determines whether our safety officers might go and see that and inspect the installation or the work, or it might not, and we might accept it on a declaration. And that's the really interesting part, because it also helps us to start learning about patterns or trends in the permit and performance data as well, and helps to really gear our resources in a way that we are looking at the things that are the highest risk. Of course, the other areas, we always maintain safety officer discretion. So if machine learning says, you have to go see this, safety officers can still say that they're not going to for whatever reason. And then also, if machine learning says this is low risk, you don't have to see it, our safety officers can always say, I'm still going to go look at it for whatever reason, because we all know, as with technology at the beginning of the intro today, is that it's not 100% reliable. And we certainly leverage the knowledge and expertise that we have on hand to be able to say, does this actually make sense? And then the last category we have are our incident investigations. So if something actually happens, and then we always follow up on those and take a look. And so with this structured model, what we do is we have this model that predicts insights from all of the data that we have, makes the recommendation. And then the idea is that the in-person efforts on that assessment spectrum is that we're going in person to see things that has the highest probability of safety hazards. And so the question that I frequently get asked all the time is, does this work? And does it work? Is the province getting safer? Is it useful? And so I wanted to go to the next slide and show you some of what we have been seeing. And when the question comes up of, are things getting safer? Is this useful? What if we weren't using these types of tools? So how we assess safety, because safety is very nebulous, we think about hazard levels. So all the things that our safety officers see are rated are given a hazard rating at level 1 through 5, with 5 being the most hazardous. You can think of level 5 as something that's electrical wire that's energized and is about to arc. And then level 1 is maybe an electric panel that doesn't have screws in properly. And so there's quite the range of potential hazard levels. And what we say as say as high hazards are things that are rated at levels 3, 4, and 5, and really at 4 and 5. So if our folks see a level 5, they're actually not walking away from that until it's brought down to a lower level. So of course, if we see a live wire, that's risky, and no one's walking away from that until it's properly de-energized. And so what we want to see in terms of effectiveness with machine learning and remote inspections as well, of course, is that when our folks go to the sites, they're detecting the highest level of high hazards. They're seeing more level 3s, 4s, and 5s. And then we are using other tools, digital tools, for the lower level hazards, the level 1s and 2s, for example. One thing, because our folks travel all over the province, we got people who actually drive up into the Yukon to come back to inspect things in BC, or some of the more remote islands. It's quite hard to travel. And so, when someone is traveling that far to check if a pipe is blue, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And that's something that can be verified through a photo or a declaration, and be accepted, and then people can move on, both on our side but also on the folks doing the work. And so when we look at structure resource allocation, this slide is a slide that captures the inspections that the machine learning algorithm spits out as being mandatory. So on the left side, what you can see is what we call the hit rate. And on the bottom is the performance quarter over quarter since 2019. And so there's quite a bit of variation. You'll see it in 2020 when we had COVID and the restrictions that were in place. And then also that was the time period when we launched remote inspections as well. So I want you to sort of keep this in mind that the blue line is at about 16% there for hit rates of 3, 4, and 5. And the red line there for levels of hazards, that's about 4 or 5. If you go to the next slide, it shows the same data, but it's an indicator of safety officer discretionary inspections. And so the hit rate there is about 8.7% and 1.7%. There are lots of things that go in terms of, is machine learning more effective than safety officer discretion? I think that's a very complex question to answer, but what we can see is that the mandatory inspections from machine learning generally results in a higher hit rate or the more likelihood of finding high hazards. And so when folks go to inspect those, it is finding levels 3, 4s, and 5. So those are some of the data related to machine learning. And then if we go to the next slide there, it's our data related to remote assessments. So this one is an indicator of assessments overall. And so on the left side is the number of assessments that have been performed. And you'll again see in 2020 and Q2, when all the restrictions came in, there was a pretty significant dip. And then you see the line trending above and actually higher than where it was prior to that time. And so one of the things that we've seen with remote assessments, we know it's less effective than physical inspections in terms of detecting high hazards. The reality is we just don't see as much when we do things remotely versus going in person. But remote assessments does help us to see more overall. And so it has been a very effective tool in terms of just being able to leverage and do more without expanding the resources and also the administrative efforts on both our side and also on client side, so that people can get through the system a little bit faster. So I think I'll wrap it up there because there's lots of other folks who are going to talk about other things.
That's great. Thanks very much, Lisa. I appreciate it. I think our next presentation is from Wayne Berg with the City of White Rock. Wayne, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Let me try and share my screen to get the slides up. Everybody can see that? Good, perfect. Yeah, so a little bit about myself. Wayne Berg, Manager of Building and Bylaw Enforcement. Unfortunately, the title, being in a small municipality, doesn't quite cover everything that I oversee. So on top of building approvals and bylaw enforcement, I also oversee business licensing, animal control, dog licensing, and tree preservation on private property. So I'm gonna busy days here in White Rock. And today I'm going to work on and focus on, let's see if I can get the slide to work, remote virtual inspections. So some of the things that we're going to talk is what are they, who can use them, and advantages and disadvantages. Working for a small municipality, it was interesting coming into a situation in 2020 when I started with White Rock. We had to make some changes, obviously, because everything was shutting down. So we worked with IT to come up with some ideas of how we can keep up our service levels and keep providing inspection services for occupied buildings and stuff like that. Non-occupied buildings, it wasn't much of an issue in White Rock because people were able to either just wait outside or be there or not be on site at all. But it became quite apparent with occupied buildings that there was a need to get to some sort of virtual inspection process where the contractor's already on site. So does the inspector need to be there as well? Working with IT, we came up with the solutions of using our already established Teams system, Microsoft Teams, and away we went. So who can use it? Well, everybody, except the wolf, because let's face it, unless he's passed his exams, he might be impersonating somebody else. Yeah, in the beginning, we had some technical issues working with people. We were staring a lot of their faces at the beginning, trying to get them to, turn their cameras around, get some good lighting and stuff like that. But eventually we got there and we found that using the virtual inspections and the inspectors sitting at the computer were saving a lot of time because we weren't, getting in the cars, driving to site, waiting to be let into the buildings, doing the inspections and then moving on to the next one. So it became a little bit of a time saver as well for us and helped us focus on other things. What's involved? I look at it as something like ingredients for making your kids pancakes on Sunday morning. Who needs what, where, and why? So what do you need? Nowadays, thankfully, I could probably say without a shadow of a doubt that most of us in local government have city issued or work issued smart devices, cell phones, smartphones, iPads, everything like that. So to say we don't have the technology is tough, and the hardware, but some people will try to argue that. Using innovative technology, things that we couldn't do previously has now become possible. We have Zoom, we have Facebook, Microsoft Teams, all sorts of software to help work through this. There's a lot of things that change on a regular basis as in our industries. Code changes regularly, bylaws change regularly. We're constantly learning new things, and it's no different for technology. We have to work with technology and see how it's going to help us. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes technology hinders us and we have to go back to the old way of just doing an in-person inspection. It's not necessarily meant for every instance. Yeah, so the process is pretty simple. Contractor calls in, schedules an inspection, requests a remote inspection for purposes, maybe there's people in the house that are vulnerable, White Rock ourselves. We have a very elderly population in White Rock. So this was quite important when COVID hit. People were in their houses all the time. They're looking at their bathrooms going, well, now I want to renovate my bathroom. So limiting the amount of people going in and out of these occupied spaces was apparent to us. So we worked with contractors and helped work our way through that. Preparation is, they'd call the inspection, the building official or admin staff would set up the virtual inspection. They'd send them a link, send them whatever tools they need. So depending on the type of inspection, we might ask that they ensure that they have infrared thermometer, flashlight, tape measure, whatever they may need for the inspection, so that it'd be no different than us being there in person. They'd have all the same tools we would have. And then performing the inspection. At the time of the inspection, we'd log in. If they weren't logging in, we'd send them a push notification. They'd eventually log in and we'd just start providing direction on where we want to go, what we want to see, ask them to pan in, zoom out, left, right, go in behind fixtures, stuff like that. I know even when I'm doing inspections in person, I find I pull my phone out to take a picture of the back of a fixture because it's easier for me to see a marking or something than trying to get in there and behind. So it'd be no different asking them to do the same thing. And then we get to the pros and cons. So obviously advantages, you're saving on time, you're saving on fuel, you're improving efficiencies, you're getting more inspections scheduled in a day if need be, and you're complying to any public health orders that are coming out. A lot of care facilities still require masks and personal protections. So this way we eliminate the additional people going into those types of facilities by doing remote inspections. Contractors are already in there doing the work, so we're just working with them to walk around the sites. Obviously, some of the cons, less hands-on training for new hires. There's a balance. So new people coming into the organization, we have to ensure that they're getting appropriate training for inspections and stuff like that. And of course, technology is always an unknown because let's face it, the world shut down not long ago when Rogers antennas shut down for a day and nobody could make payments and connect to everybody else. So there's always the limitations of the technology. And it's always advancements in hardware and technology as well. It becomes a financial burden on municipalities and organizations to ensure they're keeping up with it. So
perfect. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity to present today, share some learnings from a larger municipality's perspective, and excited to share a few different projects that we've been working on over the last couple of years. And it's been educational to hear about some of our other colleagues here from other provinces and locations doing similar work. So I think we're in pretty exciting times right now. So just a couple of thoughts to kind of frame some discussion. Scope and complexity of projects is ever increasing. Homes have become very unique and complex, integrating energy solutions or other creative designs. We hear the word risk often, but what is it? How do we measure it? What's acceptable? Or who's responsible? How can we leverage technology or data-driven solutions? And in an age of faster, how fast is fast enough? And what are the impacts of going too fast? So we all have different roles, although I feel we share a similar desired outcome, and that's a safe built environment to live, work, and play. And that's a bit of a plug for the Alberta Safety Code system, but it's one that's kept me grounded over the years and one that I look back to often. So to achieve this, and as city building partners, it means we're all responsible, accountable, and committed to an outcome. So applicants are responsible for providing complete and code compliant submissions, and then carrying out construction to align. As a regulator, we share a role in providing timely review of submissions and conducting site audits of the built environment. But collectively, we all serve an important role in public safety. So I'll share a few examples where the City of Edmonton has leveraged technology to assist in day-to-day operational functions. You can move to the next slide. Thank you. So as a municipality, we recognize permits might not always be the first thing a citizen or customer considers when they're dreaming about a new project. We also live in an environment that sometimes dictates that outdoor projects are usually seasonal or could be seasonal. So many of these projects might seem simple, but it also means collectively we're managing a much higher volume of work seasonally, so the spring and summer months. So in considering options to make simple permits faster, further allowing safety codes officers to focus on complex projects, we created a new process for simple decks or garages. Through risk analysis, qualifiers were established for simple decks and garages. So items such as size, height, loads, property location are all considered. And the documents are updated where an applicant is guided to provide correct details. So as an example of that, for decks, the desired size of the deck would correlate with span tables to select the appropriate dimensional lumber or the options that might be available for dimensional lumber when selecting beams or joists. So applications that are meeting that established criteria are issued automatically or immediately. It's at the time of inspection where the construction materials, the methods are reviewed with the permit documents to determine alignment with established requirements. So essentially, we're completing a plan review and an inspection in a single step. So the program's proving quite successful. In 2022, we saw 23% of decks and 27% of garages utilize this option. That uptake is continuing to grow. So in 2023 already, we're seeing this escalate up into the 35th percentile, which is positive news. It means we can focus on more challenging projects. Our feedback from customers has been extremely positive, and our safety codes officers are encouraged by the high success rate observed at the project completions. So all in all, it's been a win. If we can move to the next slide, please. Thanks. So City of Edmonton conducts approximately 500 to 700 inspections every day. So this equates to about 157,000 inspections in 2022. It's a pretty high number. And these request volumes can and often do fluctuate dramatically for various reasons, which makes resourcing equally challenging. So we spend a lot of time listening to industry. And the number one item of feedback that we always get is inspections conducted on date of request. Delayed inspections usually have significant construction delays or schedule delays. So we hear a lot around date of request being the ideal date. We undertook a project where we reviewed inspection capacities and based those off of available resources on any given day. So utilizing these daily caps, it ensures that we conduct all of the booked inspections on that same day of request. The extension of this is we took an automated system or an automated tool and created a mapping program where inspections are assigned to maximize the most efficient routing based on inspection priorities. At first, relying on this machine scheduling was pretty stressful. The staff with the volumes that we deal with every day know the implications of a missed inspection or assignment, and they were a little concerned. But as it turns out, the machine's working pretty good, and the benefits are really starting to shine. So the daily time that was historically reserved for inspection scheduling by our supervisors has now been reallocated to other important functions, and it's been a big time savings. We involved the inspection teams heavily in developing the operational aspects of the system. It was essential for the frontline teams to establish achievable, consistent, and repeatable processes. Industry was very supportive and provided constructive feedback and support through the entirety of this project. And this feedback has been extremely positive. We have almost 100% track record of inspections being completed on the date of request. It does require customers to plan and request inspections in advance. The system is designed on a first come, first served basis, and last minute openings are rare. Inspection capacities remain similar both pre and post project. So the win here for us was the improved predictability and consistency. And those are the positive outcomes of the project. We're exploring further options right now, looking at larger sites and the ability to book multiple buildings in the same window. And for anybody monitoring the slides there might be a few observations in relation to those stairs and maybe some OH&S concerns, but I'll put the caveat in that that's not here. If we can advance to next slide, please. So this is one that we're pretty excited about. And we touched on risk earlier. And we really started to ask ourselves, are there any other tools or technology that we can leverage? So as accredited municipalities, we're obligated to conduct certain mandatory inspections based on scope, use, or size of the project. And recognizing the evolving scope and complexity of projects, and from a business or risk perspective, we usually conduct other inspections as well. And that seems fine, right? But how do we consistently determine which inspections and on what projects, and how do our customers have awareness around that? So we undertook a project, and like the basis of any project, we needed a starting point. So we focused on our highest volume of work, that being new residential construction. We built out a bit of a challenge statement. So it's quickly evident we were beyond our expertise in this. So we enlisted some help. And that started with a data scientist and exploration into artificial intelligence. In learning this, we invited others to join. So we brought industry in, we brought our accreditation body in, we brought other relevant participants in, including the public, to join on this journey. And we examined data and extensive risk matrix assessments to determine eligible processes. The selected inspections are all lower risk or discretionary inspections. And currently there's 4 that have been selected to be used in the program in the building and mechanical disciplines. And these are all eligible for review by the AI machine. From an operational perspective, nothing changes for customers or for inspection staff. It's only the machine that knows which inspections may or may not be selected. And to maintain accuracy, an anonymous audit process was also built in. So the stats shown here on the slide reflect a current 1-year history. So essentially the breakdown, it equates to approximately 500 hours of inspection time saved by using the machine and the technology available. So again, we can refocus that time on complex or higher risk inspections. And the future look for this is to expand it to additional permit types or other building forms. Next slide, please. So in summary, as we evolve to maintain our status as leaders in industry, we need to adapt our ways of doing business. The goal of projects such as these is to utilize data and technology that will help the organization focus on changing demands, complexity of construction, and the evolving levels of risk management. So as with most data projects, it's good to begin with an open mind. Explore the data, see the opportunities that exist, and how they can be matched to operational objectives. Any working group on a project requires a focus on assessing risk. The collective time spent going through scenarios helps immensely in setting to strike the right balance between risk and reward. Change management can and often is the hardest part of these projects and a reason why projects ultimately fail. The decision to present the project in detail to all participants is critical. And while it takes time, I think it's a key component in building trust and acceptance. On the modeling or data science parts of the projects, work has been presented at a number of conferences and gathered extensive feedback. This gave us confidence that we're taking a solid approach from a technical perspective. And lastly, celebrating success. So any change is monumental and worthy of celebrating. And on the slide here, we'll see a few examples of that. So more recently here, the city of Edmonton was recognized by CHBA with a #1 ranking in a benchmarking study, looking at timelines, charges, and planning features. The artificial intelligence work was a recipient of a Smart 50 award. And from a provincial perspective, our accreditation body recognized us as a recipient for the Provincial Accreditation Award, just in regards to innovation or using innovative ideas and strategy and leveraging technology to get to the outcomes that we look for. So this is all exciting. challenged us to continue exploring, learning, innovating, and happy to see that that we're doing that across the country. So, in closing, thanks for joining today, and look forward to any questions anyone might have.
Great, thanks, Chad. Appreciate you sharing your expertise and all the work that the City of Edmonton has done adopting technology to its processes. That's great, thank you. Next presenter is John Moore from Ontario, who's going to share his experience and work both as a consultant supporting municipalities and delivering services, but also as a chief building official and building inspector himself. Gerald, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks for the introduction. Can you hear me okay, Tyler? Okay, good stuff. And my screen is up? Okay, good. We're all set. Thanks for the opportunity to speak, everybody. I thought this would be a great opportunity for us at RSM and our work in Ontario to share what we're doing with a lot of the software systems. I think we've been talking a lot about that as we've been having some discussions with the group. And I think, you know, once the pandemic hit, it kind of did a lot of work to push us into this era, which is great. But there's been a lot of work that's been done throughout the years. I know myself, I worked in some large municipalities, and at the beginning, they had great software systems. I don't know if anyone's heard of the Amanda system, but in Ontario and all the large cities, they had a great product for very, very large municipalities. But for small municipalities, there wasn't a lot of good software out there. So one of the things that we want, of course, is something that's affordable, something that works, and something that's collaborative. And I think that's one of the important things we find out with newer technologies now is that it's the old days, it was, you know, paper, right? Where we had a file folder where everything went in the file folder and the inspections. It was a good system because we can, of course, see things 20 years, 30, 40 from now. But now there's a bit of a difference. When they first came out with software, I noticed it was a lot of it was just basically a paper copy, but electronic. So the idea was the municipality itself would be the holders of the software, and they would be the only ones doing work within the program. So I'm starting to notice now, of course, with some of the software out there, that it can be more collaborative. Applicants can apply on their own at any time. They can pay, they can book inspections, they can do all the work within the same software system that's being used. Now, so that's really what I wanted to talk about today is my experience, because what we've been doing in our role in Ontario is that we support a lot of municipalities in Ontario, a lot of northern communities with that are fairly remote and that don't have a lot of resources or people in the area that can do building inspections. So one of the things we do is we support them, and we've been doing it since 2009. We also do support for large municipalities, more on the plan review side, but of course, a lot of our work is with remote and small. We're providing full building department services for some large municipalities in Northern Ontario, Red Lake, Fort Francis, kind of up near the Manitoba border, right on the there. So we're doing full building permit resources through inspections and plan reviews and permit issuance. So we've got a lot of experience in that. And one of the experiences that I want to share today is how can we do that? How can we do our jobs when we're, you know, doing something that's remote? And how can we sort of use technology in order to help us through that? One of the programs that we use, of course, is the Cloud Permit program. I'm not with Cloud Permit or a salesman for Cloud Permit, but I will say it's one of the programs that I use with exclusively with our management of a building department in these remote areas. And one of the things that we like about software and what we want to see and what we do see, of course, in the products that we're using now is that someone can simply apply for a permit by going to the website and pushing a button. That's as simple as that. So they don't have to go into the town hall during business hours or wait in line. It can simply be done by pushing a button on a website. And I think that's important with the software is the idea of and not just sort of a dump site. That's what I mean. I know some maybe being hard on some softwares, but I don't mean just you putting in your name and dumping some documents. I mean something a little bit more collaborative than that. So, you get into the actual software system yourself. You're not just dumping it in. You're collaborating with the municipality. So when you go in, you can call them up and say, hey, I got this application half in, but it won't proceed. Is there a problem? Oh yeah, let me look at it with you, and working together on getting those applications in and out. And so we do a lot of work with that because we are remote with a lot of our work that we do, because we're in Southern Ontario. So we do a lot of work. We have to be able to have something a little bit more collaborative. Once that process happens, then of course we need to make sure it's complete. One of the criteria in Ontario is that a timeline clock starts once it's determined to be complete. And so as soon as that is retrieved by the municipality, our staff are able to quickly see right away, oh, we got 2 applications came in 10 minutes ago. And so they can quickly look at those applications or schedule their day to make sure it's complete so that the clock can start. And then if there's any items, they can immediately say, sir, you're missing 1, 2, and 3. And then it won't go to the next stage until that complete application is done. Software too can help us with regards to what documents we need. So when they are submitting their documents, it'll say on the list, you need a floor plan, an elevation, or you need this or a spurt form. Unless the applicant goes and submits all those, then it gives them a warning sign. So it's really helping us sort of leverage technology to help get a good, clean application and help the applicant understand. We've all had that question, what do I need to apply for a building permit? Well, the process helps with that. A lot of times too, we want to look at software payments and the software being able to take the payments right over online. A lot of the softwares, you want to make sure that you get something that integrates with a third-party provider so that you can post a bill. So a software that would post a bill, send out an invoice and say, this is the cost you need to pay for this. Some municipalities will require prior to actual accepting the permit. Some want them before it's issued. But even if it's before it's issued, the bill's sent out, they can pay it third party. And then the process is all sort of within this collaborative project within the software so that everybody can sort of see. Concurrent reviews, really important. The idea here is that you can have your zoning department, your grading department, your building plans examiners, your admin staff, all looking at the same documents at the same time. They don't have to wait for anything, and they all have their different processes quite clear. And if they have an issue, then they can quickly send it to the applicant. And it's not an email thing. The idea is that, yes, they may get a notification, but of course, the applicant would get an email and they would go into the software and see what's going on, see the comments, and see what needs to be done. So this type of software really helps all of us sort of not deal with the day-to-day, getting an email, composing an email, doing a PDF document, entering the PDF document into the email, and then scanning it out and sending it out again. So it's all done automatically within one environment. So one of the things we've noticed when we've been issuing permits is that we've been able to have concurrent reviews even with other agencies. So sometimes our sewage systems are approved by specific jurisdictions, health units. And so even though they may be up north, they're somebody that just gets an email, hey, sign in, log in, take a look. Is this within a regulated conservation area? So this concurrent type of review is a really great way of managing these documents in one sort of environment. And I know the program that we're using, Cloud Permit, of course, really does keep that all sort of contained and that you have great records. Of course, the last step is the chief building official and the permit issuance part, where the chief building official can now, once all the pieces are involved, the last person, typically the administrator, will then just assign it to the chief building official. So they'll have a task list every day where they start going through. And if it's this chief building official or it's the supervisor, now has a very easy way. Even everybody else has all these task lists they can go through every day to see what they need to do. In issuing the permit, it's a matter of saying, we got all the plans reviewed. Yes, the plans examiner signed off. We've got, of course, the grading reviewed, the conservation authority has signed off, so on and so forth. So then when the permit is issued, there's no actual making a document for it. It's all automatic. The permit is automatically created. The approved documents are already put in with one PDF or submitted with the package. A list of inspections, of course, is also produced. So it creates this automation that really, I'll be honest, can save a lot of staff time, because you're not having to handhold through emails and printing and creating PDFs and doing all this work. It can all be done through a good software system. And we found that the software that we're using, we're able to be that intuitive when we're dealing with a remote community with regards to this permit issuance process. Now, I know my talk today, I wanted to sort of focus on the permit issuance process, but this goes into the inspection process too, where they can book their own inspections through the software. A dispatcher can look at the list that's booked for tomorrow and then assign them to different inspectors or different parts of the day. They may have asked for the morning, but of course, you can't get the morning today, sir, because we're booked. Yours is in the afternoon. So having that intuitive way of also booking things works as well. And then even issuing orders. Issuing orders are automatically created. The PDFs, it really helps everybody throughout the process. You know, the advantages I find of a good software, of course, is that everybody, all the players, the applicants, designers, municipalities are all invited, and there's all clear communication. Messages are tracked through that file. You don't have emails that you know, freedom of information request. Oh, now I have to go through all my emails of any correspondence I had for a certain file. Well, no, any messaging and any communication is kept within the program so that it's with that file. So it's going to really make sure that things are nicely organized. And it's also going to help if you do get any sort of freedom of information request. You don't have to look through 1,000, 1,500 emails. They're all messages are kept within the program. All parties being, I always like to say, one thing I do like about the program is that everybody's invited to the party. You know, we're all a part of the party, the builder, the designer, the building official, and they can upload documents, they can download documents, send messages, all is done in one spot. It's consistent too, because everybody is going to start to learn the consistency. Now, I'll tell you, when we first implement these with a lot of municipalities, there is always some growing pains. Nobody likes change. And sometimes technology can be a little bit difficult. But I think if you're persistent, you say to them, there is a process. You know, you get someone who is totally lost. A lot of municipalities will have a workstation at the municipality where they could come in and you could help them, and then you could scan the documents in. But generally, we find there's a very high uptake. If you make sure that you kind of push them a little bit to, okay, you have to book through Cloud Permit. You can't call me or you can't text me. It's through the system, and then it's nicely managed in that way. The other nice thing about the software is that if you have 5 municipalities that all have the same software in an area, builders could use the same program to apply for permits for more than one municipality. So they're already ready for it. They already understand it. They can manage their building permits through one software with different municipalities. And all it is it's accessible through different users. So, you know, if you're a municipality, you're only dealing with those permits. It also helps us on our side at RSM, because we're dealing with 8 municipalities. We now have one software system to go in to manage all 8 municipalities. So that even is a bigger picture idea. And I know that the government of Ontario has been really pushing hard on trying to streamline approvals, make them more consistent. And this is one of the ways that we found that we can say, hey, we are trying to do that by having the same software. So it really helps that. And even builders, we find builders, designers love it because they have one place to go. They understand the software. Large developments, they can even clone things. So if they have 300 units the same, they can literally copy each of those and put some additional information for one, but they could literally copy certain applications in. So it's really, really bringing to light all of the advantages that you can get with the software. And I think it really does bring us into this new age of collaboration, working together and using technology, because, you know, it really is a sort of combination of a few of us, builders, designers, and building officials together that need to sort of have compliance with the code and do it in a timely sort of fashion. And that's been sort of my presentation today, just to give a bit of discussion on the software.
Looking at the poll results, it looks like everyone got quite a bit of benefit from the discussion today, from all the different presentations and the different perspectives on how technology is being applied to permitting, whether in building or, as Lisa talked about, in electrical and pressure vessels and amusement rides as well. So shared challenges across the industry, and looking for shared solutions. And certainly as we move forward, as we've heard, technology offers one of the ways that we can get to those common outcomes that I know we're trying to achieve. So again, I would like to thank all of our presenters, Chad, Gerald, Wayne, and Lisa, for sharing their perspectives and experience and wisdom with us today. I'd like to thank all of you, all of our members from CHBA BC and BOABC that were able to attend and take part in the session. Reminder, we will, just I'm looking at a couple questions here about the slides and whatnot. I think the presentation link will be made available through the CHBA website, I believe, or however that would normally occur. We're also going to, we'll take a look at the chat, make sure we didn't miss anything, and provide any follow-ups to individuals as well. And people were looking for contact information for presenters to ask questions and, follow up on specifics. So we'll make that available, if that's all right with our presenters, and so that our participants can follow up and ask away with all the questions that I'm sure this information triggered for them. So that's it. 3 minutes early. And so again, thank you to everyone. Thank you. And I'd like to thank CHBA too for hosting this and with their system and lining it up. And Carmina, I think, was able to pop in at some point, but to Carmina and Sian and the team, thanks very much for all your help and support in getting this ready. And thanks to everyone again for attending. We'll see you soon. Take care.